All right, welcome back everyone to another episode of the Opposite of Cheating podcast. This is episode number 44. I am Trisha Bertram Gollaunch, one of your co-hosts that I always forget to introduce myself. And I'm here today joined with by Karen Costa, who is an adjunct faculty member at a lot of institutions. We're going to hear a lot about her work there, but also a faculty development professional and I would say a climate enthusiast, right, Karen? Isn't your byline on LinkedIn, every course is a climate course?
All courses are climate courses. I love
All,
that you were able to call that up
yeah,
to
yeah.
memory.
Oh no, I mean, it's an important fact of our time. So thank you, Karen, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I am AI and all the things it's bringing are, I have many, conflicted feelings about it, but talking to kind, curious people seems to help.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to be here.
Oh, good. Yeah, I hear you on the conflict. I'm not sure if I've said this in this podcast actually, but I do start all of my presentations now with my self-disclosure that I am a hopeful pessimist,
Mm.
where I have some hope because of human agency. We can make changes. We can do things differently. We do have I think a moral compass in the majority of us, and I'm also pessimistic because of the companies
Mm.
who's launching these products and the fact that they launch them not for the purpose of education, but yet are entangling educators in it by giving it away free to all of our students, and then telling us we have to use it and teach it.
Well, that's exactly how I feel. So, thank you. You summed
Good.
up my stance pretty well there. Thanks.
Okay, well, that's great. So why don't you, I know, yeah, like, why don't you tell people a little bit more about what you do and what context? Because the reason what you do and in what context is the reason why I asked you on here. Oh, are you frozen?
Sure.
Oh, there we go.
So I started working in I've been working in higher education. Yep. I started working in higher ed in about 2002.
Okay.
And so what year are we in? 2025,
Yeah.
23 years. I started teaching in 2006. I was teaching on site at a community college.
Mm.
I started teaching fully online asynchronous courses in 2008. So I've been doing that for quite a while.
Yeah.
And currently, I teach at a variety of institutions, fully online async. I started out teaching first year experience type courses.
Oh,
I now continue to teach those. I also teach information literacy, research, and now the climate piece of things. So I teach a course called Climate Justice Leadership and a course called Active Hope. So that's sort of half of my life
yeah.
and then my work life. And then the other half of my work life is faculty development and support. So that looks like the book that I've written my second book about supporting learners with ADHD.
Yep.
It looks like doing workshops, um, writing primarily on social media as well about things that I'm seeing and offering resources and things like that to support faculty. So pretty much somewhat split my time between teaching undergraduates as an adjunct
Mhm.
and then working to support faculty and staff in their teaching and their work as well.
Great. And so if for those schools that you're teaching all those online asynchronous courses, are they for fully online asynchronous degrees or what's the context of the degrees in which
It
you're teaching?
varies. It
Okay.
varies. And I've taught at there's institutions that I've taught for that I'm no longer teaching for. So at this point, I feel like I've taught for every institutional type
Yeah.
under the sun that we have, whether it's on-site, um, online, asynchronous, synchronous. Some are part of fully online degrees. Some
Okay.
are primarily on-site degrees where online is mixed in. I've
Okay.
done dual enrollment courses where I went to a local high school. So yeah, I've taught uh, across all modalities. My heart is with online asynchronous, particularly with fully online degrees for a few reasons. I think the primary one is access. So I believe that online, when done well, can be as effective, if not more effective, for many learners than on-site learning. I know that many learners who I teach would not otherwise be able to continue and further their education. Examples of students I've taught are, long distance truck
Mm.
drivers, students who are on active military service, serving
Hmm.
all around the world, new parents,
Mm.
um, pregnant students who will start the course when they're,
Right.
38 weeks pregnant and are able to just, take a few days off and come back, and that's something that they want to do. And I was one of those learners. I started my most recent grad degree when my son was about 8 weeks old, and I was home on maternity leave. And I would not have been able to do that. I did a program at Northeastern University in Boston. It was 95% online. Would not have been able to continue my education at that time of my life
Mm.
without online. So, access and success is really important for me for all learners. And this democratizing power of online is incredibly important to me
Mm.
and always has been. This past year, I think that my passion for that has been renewed as that access has been so deeply threatened. We saw this sort of like expanse of that access during COVID, early COVID
Yeah.
times, and which was really exciting and hopeful for me. And now we're in this, I fear, this contraction state
Mm.
because of the threats to online, and people are very are saying things like we need to get rid of online, which is really somewhat terrifying to me. In that, what I feel like what I hear when people say that is we're going to eliminate access for all of
Mm.
the students who've won access in the past couple decades.
Hmm.
So yeah, online async is my
Okay.
heart, it's my soul, and it's it's my livelihood. It's a lot of things.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll get in, we're going to get more into that in a little bit,
Sure.
but first I have to ask you the question we ask everybody, which is, what is your first memory of encountering this idea or value or principle of academic integrity?
Yeah, you shared that with me earlier, and I've been thinking about that.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I cannot remember. So I've been teaching, I think, what did I say? Since 2006. Been
Yep.
teaching for almost 20 years. I don't remember really thinking about this concept of academic integrity until the past few years, and here's why. I somehow, I don't quite know how, maybe because of my, undiagnosed neurodivergence, but when I started teaching, there was two things that were really core to my teaching. The first was that everything was grounded on relationships, building positive, supportive relationships with my students and
Mm.
giving them, not just saying that I care about them, but giving them evidence of my care.
Right.
That was always number one. If I got lost, as I would often do, I think I was like 25 years old when I
Right.
started teaching. I would always go back to, that human relationship.
Hmm.
And the second thing was, if a student didn't understand something, I always would say to myself, I would never say like, they need to work harder, or why can't they figure this out, or what's
Mm.
wrong with them. I would always say, okay, how can I explain this more effectively? Like that's my
Mm.
job. I and 20 years later, I now know that those things are aligned with, effective pedagogy, but I got lucky. I don't know. I picked those things up.
Yep.
And those were the core of my teaching. And when I did those things, I think, Jim Lang talks about this in his book, Cheating Lessons. Academic integrity was just sort of a natural outcome
Mm.
of taking care of my students, helping them take care of each other. We're a classroom community built on care. And I'm going to help you figure this out. Like, I'm going to scaffold this more. I'm going to make this more relatable. I'm going to adapt and make sure you understand this. When those two things are in place, prior to maybe 2021, when those two things are in place, I think that eliminates the vast majority of cheating behaviors in the classroom. Did I see some instances of it? Yeah, but it was so rare that it just didn't break through.
Yep.
Where I think I can recall being like, whoa, academic integrity, something's going on here, is around 2021
Mm.
when I learned about, I'm not even going to say the name of the company because they're all of these companies have so
Yeah.
much money they could sue me out of my house. So But I learned about these companies that were multi-billion dollar companies who had teams of behavioral psychologists and designers and technologists who were all working to design tools that they wanted to be irresistible
Yes.
to students. So much so that they would frame what most educators, I think, would agree as cheating as this isn't cheating,
It's
right? Like,
helping.
it's fine. This is
Yep.
just good. This is, this is what learning is now.
Yes.
So when I learned about that, and in 2021, like, geez, that now seems like an idyllic time, right?
I know.
Compared to what we're seeing, the good old days of 2021.
Yeah.
Um, now that has only continued to grow with the rise of AI and now this agentic AI. And then this morning I was reading about the AI glasses.
Yes.
So, you can't, it's all moving so fast, you can't keep up with it. That I really the question I'm really asking myself is, what does it mean? What does academic integrity mean when there are multi-billion dollar companies with armies of
Yes.
people whose job it is to make cheating irresistible?
Yes.
And I don't think there's easy answers to that question, but that's the question that I'm asking
Yeah.
myself quite a bit.
The question I think we're all asking, I think we're in the same boat there. Um, so let's talk more about that. So when I go out and I give talks, people often ask me, I teach online asynchronous, so what should I do? And I've been very first at a very just foundational level, encouraging us to decouple, right, online learning, the modality of learning from the modality of the assessment, right? And so, because in person, or as you call it, on-site learning, also use online asynchronous unsupervised
Hmm.
assessments all the time. And they are no more, or they're no less vulnerable to integrity issues than if it's done in an online class. So it's not the modality of learning that's the problem. Um, and then, then we have to separate out the formative assessments, right? The ones meant to facilitate student learning from the summative
Yep.
ones, or the ones meant to
Hmm.
validate student learning. So what have you learned, both from the 2021 experience and through now that we have agents, AI agents that can do online quizzes? I don't have to hire a person anymore. I can just get an AI agent to complete all of my work for me. What have you learned about how to maintain integrity during that time? You have not given up on online asynchronous assessments.
No, 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 I'm not there yet. Um, and that might change. I know that I have talked to educators who I deeply respect, who I know care about their students as humans and who care deeply about teaching and learning, who are moving in that direction of rethinking assessment strategies
Yeah.
for all of their classes. I'm not there yet. I'm aware that of that trends. I'm not there yet. So what I'm doing, so I'm doing a lot of things. One of the first things I'm doing is what I sort of call sometimes maintaining my vessel,
Mm,
which is maintaining myself as an educator and a human so that I can continue to do this work.
yeah.
So I was in a
Putting your own
rather
oxygen mask on first.
yes, 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 Trisha, exactly. So this is keeping in mind, right, those aforementioned billion dollar companies, they benefit from me being completely dysregulated.
Yeah.
They benefit from me being so stressed out that I cannot speak clearly and in a grounded way to my colleagues and my
Yeah.
peers and my students. They
Yeah.
benefit from me being in a frenzied state, which to be honest, I think it was a few weeks ago when like I had just sort of got started to feel like a little bit of more confidence in this conversation, and then I saw the agentic AI and the I'm not going to name specific companies, but there's
They
ads
gave it
going.
away for free to anybody with an EDU
Yep.
address,
There's the ad going
and
around where
their
it's like,
ad, yep.
yeah.
They're
Um,
advertising it as a cheating tool.
yes,
Hmm.
that sent me into just a
Mm,
frenzy. And I then, one of my coping strategies is to try to learn everything on a
yeah.
topic,
Yeah.
quite literally, not helpful. I'm really being intentional about, I stopped doing that. I stopped watching every YouTube video on AI, listening to every podcast on AI, ordering and reading every book. Not helpful. I am sort of simmering down, slowing down,
Mm,
and being a lot more cautious about what I consume so
mm,
that I can have a better sort of consume and create ratio. I was taking in so much and I
yeah.
wasn't able to thoughtfully put out and
Yeah.
express. So things like having a conversation with you in this sort of thoughtful,
Hmm.
caring human way
Hmm.
is a great use of my time. I did a workshop last week with my friend Naya Bond.
Yes.
Um, that was a great use of my time. I'm doing my morning pages again, my Julia Cameron morning pages,
Nice.
little things like that. I think that's really important to say because
Hmm.
this can consume us, and those of us who are most sensitive and caring about education and students are most likely to become consumed and
Yep.
overwhelmed, and then we're just playing right into their game.
Yeah.
So not going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So taking care of myself so that I can make good choices, so that I can ask myself, like, what do I feel about this idea of decoupling online learning from online assessment, so that I can approach that in a really thoughtful way and not just reacting, but
Yeah.
be intentional about it.
Yeah.
Some things I'm doing in my courses, I'm doubling down on relationships once
Hmm.
again. I've said this a couple times. This is the hardest term of my teaching career.
Mm.
I taught while I was pregnant. I taught when my
During the
son
pandemic.
was, yeah, when my husband and I were both working full time, my son was a toddler. Like
Mm.
that was incredibly difficult. Pandemic. This is the hardest term of my teaching
Wow.
career, 20 years.
That says a lot.
Yeah. I found myself getting really frustrated with students who I perceived were using AI, and I was getting lost from
Yeah.
that core value of mine, which is building positive relationships, which is, probably a sign of some burnout, but I know
Hmm.
enough to know what it is. So I, pretty quickly was able to catch on to that. And like one of my non-negotiables is I am I am communicating in a kind, calm, centered manner to my students.
Yeah.
And if I can't do that, then I don't send, I need to take a step away from the device and come back to it. But if I can't do that,
Yeah.
then I can't do this work because
Hmm.
that is the, as I said, that was from day one what I was here to do. I can't give that up.
Yeah.
That has, and I really do think that, we get what we give. That has sort of lowered the tenor of frenzy that I was co-creating with my students at a certain point.
Hmm.
And it opens up the lines of communications. Students are going to receive a certain an accusatory tone in an
Yep.
email much differently than an, inquisitive
Inquisitive.
tone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and they will respond, it creates a more positive cycle.
Hmm.
I'm also being much more proactive in communicating with my students about here's how we're going to use AI in this course and pretty much not use AI in this course. And
Hmm.
here's why that's the case.
Good.
And that is because I have high expectations of you, because I care about you and I know that you are wildly capable of doing this work. And I am putting that message everywhere in my online course.
Okay.
It's in everything that I do. And then the third thing that I'm starting to work on is friction.
Mm.
So one of the things I'm looking to do, I'm starting to research this and looking to do this next term, is I have a specific course. It's a research course that
Mm.
is probably my most problematic course. And there's a lot we could talk about there. This is for primarily students who are in looking to get into like human services and social work, and they're required to write a, a research proposal. I'm an adjunct. I'm hired to teach the course.
You
I'm not
can't teach
involved
that.
in
Yep.
the decision about what courses are taught.
Yep.
But we could ask the question, does this would be a whole nother podcast, Trisha, but does a social worker need to know how to write a research proposal and do statistical analysis? that is a conversation that's one of the interesting parts of this AI story is that it's forcing us to
Yeah.
ask those questions.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, um, I am hired to teach these students and help them. At the very least, I approach it as develop their critical thinking skills, their writing and
Mhm.
communication skills. But it's super problematic because you can see that there's that sense of sort of ingrained lack of relevance in the
Yeah.
course that's driving a lot of students
Mm.
to, for an incredibly difficult subject, complex
Yep.
subject, that's a recipe for heavy
And
AI
difficult
use.
task. If
Yeah,
AI didn't
exactly.
exist, a difficult task. Yeah.
Exactly. So I am looking to do some having them work in Google Docs and share their Google Docs history
Mm-hmm.
as a way to put a little bit of friction in between them
Yep.
and the AI because I know they can do this work. They've been doing it for the past several years that I've been teaching it. And to add a little bit more clarity in some places, that is something I can control, where
Mm-hmm.
I can look at like where are they most leaning into that AI. I can use that as an opportunity to be like, oh, that's where they need more scaffolding and care.
Uh, hmm.
Again, just doubling down on the relational aspect of getting to know my students, sending encouraging, warm emails, encouraging warm communications, to let them know that I'm there to support them and why I don't want them to use AI. Not because I'm trying to be punitive or slow them down in their progress toward their degree, but because I care about them and I know they're capable.
Yeah.
So I have been playing with those things for the past couple months, and what I do notice a slight shift,
Okay.
and I'm going to. That's just I'm sort of like in a play experimentation data collection stage,
Mm-hmm.
and I think next term I'll be in a really good space to formalize some of
Mm.
these things. The other thing I'll mention quickly is the more open the discussion, the better those discussions are performing.
Okay.
So the traditional sort of like closed discussions of like, please read these two things and, compare and contrast them and share, an example from the reading,
Yeah.
not performing well.
Yeah.
When I say to my students, what was the most interesting thing you learned this week? And
Mm.
what did you already know about this topic? How can you use this in I have them do a term-long local action project.
Nice.
So highly relevant to their lives. Those discussions are performing really, really well. Students, I think, like talking about themselves and their opinions and
Yep.
their ideas when it's, sort of enlivening and engaging in that way. And those are performing really well. So, yeah, those are some of the things I've been doing online async.
Yeah.
Could could an agentic AI come in and do all of those things? Yeah. Will we have, do we have? I was talking to my 16-year-old about the AI glasses, and he was like, "Ma, those are old,"
What?
which I think is him saying I'm old. Um, but yeah, like I mean there's I guess one of my feelings is I'm hearing like immense concerns from people teaching on site as well. And
Yeah.
these these multi-billion dollar companies, if they see an opportunity for profit, they're going to figure out a way to
Yeah.
beat, it's like this arms race.
Yeah. No,
So
it's true.
that's why I haven't gone down that road yet. That's one of the reasons of um, that assessment piece, on-site assessment, in that I think somebody's going to figure out a way to game that as well. So I'm going toward, relationships, pedagogy, outreach,
Yeah.
working with my community, brainstorming, collaboration,
Yeah.
and seeing where that takes us.
Yeah. That's amazing. I wrote down your seven point plan for teaching for integrity in the age of AI in online asynchronous. I'll share that with you, and if you agree with how I've summarized it, then I'll put those in the show notes. And
Oh, good.
or we could write it up together or something. Um, I wanted to ask you a couple follow-up questions
Sure.
about the context. So you said you've taught dual enrollment and you're teaching truck drivers on the road. So right now, this term, this fall, what is the age range of the students that you're teaching?
Oh, I believe
Guesstimate.
yeah, I think I have someone as young as, I think I have somebody as young as 16
Okay.
in one of my online courses. And I suspect, I'm going to say the oldest would be around 68.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, so yeah, I have one of the places where I teach, two of the courses are the more traditional age students.
Okay.
So they're seniors. So
Yep.
most of them are around 21, 22.
Okay.
But many of the places I teach, I work with what I've always called new traditional learners, what
Yeah.
folks used to call non-traditional. So much more likely that being a college student was not their primary identity.
Yeah.
Being a parent, being a worker,
Yep.
being a member of a spiritual community, things like a
Yep.
homeowner, spouse, those
Yeah.
were there. They have
Okay.
multiple identities that they hold.
Yeah, and I guess my point of asking that question is we know that for young people, their frontal lobe's still developing, and I do think, it's different teaching teaching to anybody who is an adult who's choosing to come back or to come to school later in life might be more intrinsically motivated than younger folks, but maybe not. It depends on the reasons. We know lots of teachers take classes because it'll get them a pay raise, right? So it's not always an intrinsic motivation there, but I was
Mm.
curious. And what size are your classes? Like how many students are you teaching in per class on average?
Yeah. So, in terms of age, first of all, I suspect my frontal lobe is still developing as well. So, yeah, and I have ADHD, so folks with ADHD do have significant neurological differences, and we approach challenges differently
Hmm.
and learn differently. And there are some interesting conversations that could be had about the, you know, beautiful ADHD passion, which the flip side of that coin is can often be impulsivity, and
Yeah.
our tendency to wait till the last minute to do things also
Right.
makes us can make ADHDers particularly have a greater tendency to be drawn to those shortcuts if
Offloading.
they
Yeah.
aren't getting the support they need. So
Yeah.
I very much relate to that sort of 18-year-old mindset of, what's the sort of like quickest way to get through this.
Right.
So I will say that um, I've been, teaching students of, again, I've been teaching high school students. When I think back to that high school course that I taught, I didn't have an issue with cheating. Everything was just so grounded in the student's life and experience.
Hmm.
Everything was so personalized to each student. And I knew each student so well. I knew what was going on in their lives that, we were co-creating this experience together. So I do think that regardless of age or learning differences or neurodivergence,
Hmm.
that those things that I mentioned earlier, relationships and making sure
Hmm.
students know that you will help them figure it out, and that you will scaffold and you will personalize. That to me is the foundation of academic integrity.
Hmm.
So class sizes I teach, generally speaking, are around 30 students,
Wow.
if I had to give or take.
A lot.
And I teach multiple classes. So
Yeah.
I teach probably a couple hundred students a term. I've taught tens of thousands of students a term. I'm an adjunct, so yeah, I think that's part of the conversation as well, is I'm always saying a lot of our challenges come back to course sizes and course loads.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
all of these lovely things we're talking about hinge on our bandwidth and time and ability to invest. Like the changes I talked about making are what I'm doing over my winter break. You know what I mean? So,
Free labor.
right.
Yes.
So ideally, if, I'm really glad you brought this up. Institutions, particularly once we are relying so heavily on adjunct labor, would be making sure that they're supporting adjuncts and if these changes need to be made in the time and energy and pay for
Yeah.
making those changes.
Well, and yes, and the full-time faculty aren't getting any time training or support to do this either, right? They're not getting course release time to redesign the course. All of you are expected to rebuild the plane while you're flying it, and it's patently unfair, and not doable, especially when the change is happening as fast as it is. I thought you were going to say you had classes of like 10 to 15, the way you were talking about building relationships with your students. 30 per class is a lot, and then times that by five or however many classes you're teaching,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I've been doing it for a while. So in my defense, it has become second nature, and I
Yeah.
have a lot of, this is, I mentioned like protecting the vessel and putting on the oxygen
Yeah.
mask. One of the things I did a few weeks ago was I created sort of like an AI command center for myself. I use Notion, which is a
Yep.
database management tool,
Great.
but you could do this in Google Docs. And for every place I teach, I have their academic integrity policy. I have their artificial intelligence policy.
Mm,
I have, direct emails that I've received giving me directions on how to handle things. I've
mm.
got scripts of language that I want to use with common
Wow.
issues that I'm seeing. Because what I realized was every time one of these issues would come up in one of my classes, I was starting from zero because I
Yeah.
was like, wait a minute, what am I
Which
supposed to be doing?
school is this?
Which
What's,
school, what policy? Because all
yeah.
the policies are different.
Yeah, of course.
And
Because we're
I would
all
have,
special and unique, Karen.
right, right.
Yes.
So I would have to go, and I was just burning through a lot of time and energy.
Yeah.
So one of the things I would recommend to folks is even if your time is not honored by others, you can honor your own time
Love
by
it.
taking an hour to set something like that up, which will save you so many hours and so
Hmm.
much energy down the road. It's one of those, I mirror and support the work of Adrienne Marie Brown, who says small is all.
Yep.
So it's a small leverage point that I have. It's something I can do, and it has already just seeing it on my desktop relieves it brings down my stress level.
Mm.
I have, Notion, you can put the little emojis in it.
Yeah.
So I have the little robot emoji there
Yeah.
next to it. One of my friends texted me. She's like, please send it to me. I'm like, okay, like I'm only showing it to you. It's like my secret little mad Notion page. So it's a stress relief and it's saving me time. It's saving me energy.
Yeah.
And I would strongly recommend folks think about
Yeah.
taking care of their time
That's a
with
great
something like
tip.
that.
And theoretically, you only have to do it once per institution, except every time they change their policy or their
Oh
procedures for but theoretically,
yeah,
the
yeah,
hard lift is once.
yeah,
Um, I want to go back to your earlier point about access. And you said you were doing an online program yourself, um, a grad program, I think, when your son was a toddler or baby.
yep.
And you said 95% of it was online. What was the 5%?
Sure. So I'm ABD, all but dissertation. So this
Yep.
was a doctoral program at Northeastern in educational leadership.
Yep.
And my son was an infant. He was 8 weeks old when I started. I was on maternity leave, actually. The 95% was all of the courses were fully online, but two of the courses were hybrid. And you
Okay.
could choose which of those courses they were. And the hybrid courses, we were required to go into Boston for, I think it was like two full all-day
Weekends.
sessions.
Okay.
Yep. So it was like an 8 hour
Mm,
session, and that turned the course hybrid, but the rest of the course was online.
okay.
So other than that, the courses were fully online, and yeah, it was a fantastic experience. I'm not ABD because it was online. I'm ABD because I had undiagnosed ADHD at the
Right.
time, and the dissertation process is where the wheels came off. But other than that,
Yeah.
it was a fantastic program.
Okay, so thanks for explaining that. So leads me into the question about access, and then we can wrap up. So So when the pandemic happened, we all had to go emergency remote instruction, even those of us, people who had taught on site.
Hmm.
And there was a big debate, remember, about privacy versus integrity with the use of remote online proctoring companies. And for
Hmm.
the most part, institutions chose privacy over
Mm.
integrity and said, no, you can't use these. And then with online asynchronous assessments, I think we've chosen access over integrity in many ways because we're not providing faculty with how do you ensure integrity in those online asynchronous assessments, right? They're not given help to know how to do that. And my theory is that we're smart people, and we could do a much better job of upholding both privacy and equity, or sorry, integrity and equity,
Hmm.
and access and integrity. Um, because as long as we're clear with students up front, that the access is to majority of your program, but there's going to be, at the University of Sydney would say, some milestone assessments where you're going to be closely observed to make sure you know what we're going to say that you know. And to me, again, this is the same for on-site students. There has to be more kind of close observation, just like in the world of work, right? Like the supervisor is going to see you give a presentation. The supervisor is going to see you do X, Y, or Z. Um, so I don't know. I feel like I wonder what you think about this tension that seems to exist between access and integrity.
Yes, I think that my definition of integrity, which, knowing that you and I were going to chat, I've been thinking quite a lot about that. And I think my definition of academic integrity and integrity is different. Um, I was thinking about, so I do ceramic art.
Yeah.
And I was getting really stuck trying to think about what's integrity anymore. I think it's probably because it's so rare to see in the wild.
Mm,
So when I was thinking about like integrity amongst humans, I was getting really stuck. And I
mm.
said, well, wait a minute. When I go to pottery class and I make a piece, we talk about integrity and pottery as a piece that can survive the kiln.
Structural integrity.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when your piece explodes in the kiln, as many of mine have in the past 2 years,
Yeah.
we say you go to your teacher and she'll often say something like the pot lacked integrity. And I was thinking of that as integrity being the the practice of surviving the kiln. And a couple things come to mind. First of all, I don't think that's an individual trait. I think that's a communal
Yeah.
experience.
Hmm.
And that goes back to the professor expressing care for the
Mm.
student. That goes back to the professor scaffolding the assignments and making sure that they are explaining them to in a way that is personalized and so that the student can understand and grow.
Hmm.
So I was thinking about when I was in high school, a time that I cheated. And there was a couple fact, it was in chemistry. Um, the teacher would stand and face the board, and he would write these tiny little notes about the chemical equations on the board, and he would
Okay.
speak at the board.
Okay.
And I had no clue what was going on. One day, one of my friends yelled out, "Can you please write bigger?" And that was the only time I remember him turning around. He turned halfway around and said, "That's as big as it's going to get." And that was his
Wow.
pedagogy. So I remember a cheat sheet that I made, which
Yeah.
the I guess punchline of the story is I think I still failed on the test because I was that far gone.
Right.
I didn't even know what I was writing
What
on the
to put
cheat
on the
sheet.
cheat sheet.
Yeah. So, I thought back to that recently and I was like, do I feel like I lacked integrity in that situation? And I feel like I was surviving the kiln.
Yeah.
And I wish that I had felt I had the resources to make a better choice or a
The
different
agency.
choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there was no care in the, not only was it bad teaching, but there was also no care expressed. So I remember, I think, complaining to my mother. She complained to somebody, and there was like, it was just like, you're going to have to figure it out. And I did. or I got through it. I'm still here. I went to college. I survived it. But, I'm thinking of that. I'm thinking of the context of these multi-billion dollar companies making
Yeah.
cheating feel irresistible. And I'm thinking about some of our courses and our, programs that are outdated that do not include, I think we mentioned at the beginning, any discussion of climate, which is literally the air that we breathe that
Yeah.
allows us to study history,
Right.
business,
Yeah.
economics, whatever. You can't breathe money. Um, so I look at that and I say, that to me is all part of academic integrity. So if students are choosing to use AI to submit an assignment, I'm not at the point where I want to say, let's put sort of a piece of proctoring or compliance as an answer to that
Mm.
question or that problem. I'm more of the at the point where I want to go to the roots and look
Mm.
at the relationships. I want to look at the scaffolding. I want to look at the relevance, and I want to look at this idea of the desire paths that I think students are paving. Desire paths are this concept from design theory where
Oh.
the architects make a concrete
Yes.
path and then the people make
Make
a
the
dirt
real path.
path.
Yeah.
And I think the students are making, and
Interesting.
let me say also, Tricia, we're saying students, faculty are using this as much as students, everybody's using it. So let's not make this.
Yeah.
um, I'm very curious about what that desire path looks like and where
Hmm.
that leads. And for me, it's been that students want to talk about the problems that are plaguing their daily lives
They
and
do.
world, like the fact that 40 million people in our country almost lost access to food like
Right.
last week. Like it was that in like we're so slow
Yeah.
in higher ed. So for me, not addressing that in our courses, not addressing climate, that's the real integrity problem for
Mm.
me. And when I think of it, I only have so many hours in a day, so I can't get to that place where you or maybe others are. I'm not saying I won't get there. Maybe that will be the direction we go. I'm sort of in a different place when I think about integrity. And the last thing I also want to say, Tricia, is I also think the learning management systems can be doing way more, which
Yes.
is to say they're doing, at this point, in my
Nothing.
viewpoint, absolutely
Yes.
nothing other
Absolutely.
than putting this onto faculty. They're please, like, I can't see another post where they say there's nothing we can do about
Yeah.
this. Those are multi-billion dollar companies who are
Yes.
telling adjuncts and faculty who, are making, peanuts compared to them
Yeah.
to redesign their courses.
Yeah.
So where are those guardrails that prevent the cheating and the frictionless those frictionless choices from happening in the first place?
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm directing my energy. I know faculty who I respect, who care about their students, who care about learning, who are going in the direction of putting some more robust, perhaps proctored assessments in
Mm.
place. I'm not there yet. I'm
Yeah.
in those other places.
Well, and I think that's totally fair. And, this is why, when I talk to folks, I talk about this being a institution-wide problem, a department program level problem. Not every course needs every assessment to be secure. Some courses, we just don't know that need that. We might need milestones or benchmarks, or maybe you're right, and we don't need them at all if we do some other things right. But let's end on that note. I think this is a both and problem. It's the
Oh
students have
yeah,
agency to make better choices. Faculty
absolutely.
have agency to redesign things. LMS companies and AI companies have agency to care and be more ethical about what they're doing. Um, and all of us have motivations to not exercise that agency in ways that's helpful. So thank you so much, Karen, for joining me today. It was a great conversation, and maybe we'll touch base again in a year to see if you've changed your mind about anything or and to see how things are going. But I appreciate you as an adjunct and someone who's just cares so much about teaching and students.
Thank you, Tricia.